Hi, I'm the Red Lady, and in this second episode of the Red Lady Travels, we are visiting the Chateau de Versailles, or the palace. There's so much to see here that I couldn't possibly cover it all. However, I do have a lot of my own images from this visit, and I'm only hoping that I can give this amazing place the credit it deserves in this video. Most of the focus here will be on the artwork, which is mostly dedicated to the gods and goddesses of the Roman pantheon. I thoroughly enjoyed this excursion, which was about half a day, but to be perfectly honest, you would probably need at least 2 full days to properly explore this palace and the vast gardens. This video is not a history lesson, it's simply how I experienced this wonderful place, and I'm hoping that one day I might be able to return and explore further. All sources and relevant links will be in the description box below the video. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share, as it helps me out a lot. Thanks. So first of all, just a little background. King Louis XIII initially built a hunting lodge in Versailles in 1623, and later on it was replaced by a chateau. So Louis XIV then inherited it, and it was he who over a period of 50 years continued to build and extend this chateau until it eventually became Europe's largest chateau. So he then moved his entire court and government here, and it became his main residence. So the first thing that strikes you as you approach the palace gates is the gold. At least it's the first thing that caught my eye. There is gold everywhere you look, and that is when it hits you that you are about to enter a building that you are never going to forget. And then it's the sheer size of the place. And once through the gates, it might take you longer than you thought to walk up to the main entrance, because all of the architecture and the detail, and you just want to stand and stare, and that is basically the case throughout the entire tour. It's just spectacular, and you will find yourself being rooted to the spot because everything that surrounds you is a feast for the eyes. Now, the artwork collection in the palace is vast. There is artwork everywhere, about 60,000 pieces. So this is essentially a museum that displays 5 whole centuries of French history. So I will start in the Hercules drawing room. The Hercules drawing room, or Salon d'Hercule, was built as a setting for Veronese's meal at the house of Simon the Pharisee. And in the centre you can see Mary Magdalene anointing Jesus' feet with oil that she then famously wipes with her hair. Opposite, above the fireplace, hangs Veronese's Eliza and Rebecca. The ceiling by Lemoyne represents the apotheosis of Hercules. This is the largest ceiling painted on canvas in Europe. It's 480 square metres. There are 140 figures representing the gods and goddesses of Olympus gathering for the arrival of Hercules after he was raised to the rank of a god. Next, we have the abundance drawing room. So during the evenings, refreshments such as coffees, wines and liqueurs would have been served in this room. Next is the Venus room, named after the planet Venus, which follows the sun mythology theme of much of the decor here. So on this ceiling oval, Venus is depicted subjugating the gods and powers, and in the evenings this room would have contained baskets of flowers, pyramids of rare fruit of the time such as oranges and lemons, and also candied fruits. Next is the Diana drawing room, the goddess of the hunt and the moon, also the twin sister of Apollo. So the whole room is dedicated to scenes from legends of the goddess Diana. The ceiling depicts Diana watching over various hunting scenes. This painting is the sacrifice of Iphigenia by Lafosse over the fireplace. I didn't quite manage to get the fireplace, but you can clearly see the last minute intervention by Diana with the crescent moon on her head there. And this one is Diana watching over the sleeping Endymion. According to the myth, when Diana first saw the young shepherd sleeping in the shelter of a cave, she instantly fell in love with him, and this room would have been the billiard room where the king would play billiard games to a small crowd of spectators. This is the Mars drawing room, and it was used appropriately as a guard room and dedicated to the god of war. And in the evenings it was used as a ballroom when the occasion called for it. The central ceiling painting is of Mars on a chariot pulled by wolves, and portraits of Louis XV and Marie Leczinska, Queen of France, 1747, also hang in this room. The Mercury drawing room. In 1682, when the court and government was officially established at Versailles, this room functioned as the state bedchamber. So on the right of the bed is a painting of David playing the harp, which was one of Louis XIV's favourite paintings. And to the left is St. John on Patmos. So this clock was a gift to Louis XIV from the clockmaker Antoine Morand in 1706. And when the hour strikes, the figures of Louis XIV and of fame appear descending from a cloud. The ceiling painting is of Mercury, the patron god of trade, arts and sciences, and messenger of the gods, on a chariot pulled by two roosters. The Apollo drawing room is yet another of the more luxurious rooms in the king's state apartments. It was used as a throne room, and the centre ceiling painting is of Apollo on his sun chariot, and this is where the 8-foot-high silver throne would have been, but it was melted down in 1689. And here in this room hangs the famous portrait of Louis XIV. In the war room, on the ceiling, we have France personified, sitting on a cloud, armed and surrounded by victories. The shield holds a portrait of Louis XIV. The arches depict defeated enemies of France and Bellona, the goddess of war. This oval bas-relief shows Louis XIV on horseback trampling his enemies, and below is Clio, the muse, recording the king's great deeds for posterity. And this is the archway that leads to the Hall of Mirrors. The Hall of Mirrors is an extraordinary room. It functioned as a passageway giving access to the king's apartment. Courtiers would gather here in the hopes of seeing the king on his way to the chapel. Grand celebrations were also held here, full dress balls and masked balls. There are 357 mirrors in arches that stand opposite the windows, and this is the view out from one of those windows. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to get photos of the peace room, but I did get some of the council chambers. The Council of State would meet here on Sundays and Wednesdays, and the Council of Finances would meet here on Tuesdays and Saturdays. The king would be seated in an armchair and the ministers on folding chairs. Here is the king's bedchamber, and it was here that Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, died after his 72-year reign on the 1st of September 1715, and after him both Louis XV and Louis XVI would use it for the ceremonies of the lever and the coucher. So here we have the antechamber known as the Bullseye antechamber. It served as a waiting room for the ceremonies of the lever and the coucher, so when the king rose or retired. It occupies a strategic position in the king's apartment between the king's chamber, the Hall of Mirrors, the queen's apartment, and also the staircase down to the dauphin's apartment on the ground floor. Here we have the Queen's bedchamber. This is where the Queen spent most of her time. Here she would receive guests and also give birth. 19 princes and princesses were born here between 1682 and 1786. 2 queens also died here, Maria Theresa and Marie Ledzinska. The decoration in the room reflects the 3 queens who once occupied it, Maria Theresa, Marie Ledzinska and Marie Antoinette, who replaced the fireplace and the furniture. The peers' salon, or the nobles' room, is where the Queen would hold official audiences and ladies new to the court would be presented to her. It was completely redecorated by Marie Antoinette in apple green damask and gold stripe. Here is the royal table antechamber where the royals would take public meals, and here hangs a painting of Marie Antoinette and her children, Madame Royale, who survived the revolution, the Duke of Normandy, future Louis XVII, who died in the prison du Temple in 1795, and the Dauphin, who died in 1789, sadly pointing to an empty cradle which would have held Madame Sophie, who died at a very young age before the painting could be completed. This painting overhangs the fireplace in the Queen's Guard room, where 12 of the Queen's Guards were on duty day and night. It was here on the 6th of October 1789 that the guards lost their lives, saving the Queen from a group of rioters who tried to enter the Queen's apartments. One of those guards warned a lady-in-waiting, who then bolted the door to the royal table antechamber, and the Queen escaped through to the King's apartments. The coronation room. And here we have the coronation of Emperor Napoleon I and coronation of Josephine at Notre Dame de Paris on the 2nd of December 1804. And this room first served as a chapel, then as a guard's room, and then it was devoted to the glory of Napoleon Bonaparte, first consul and then Emperor of the French. And these rooms are just a few of the 2,300 rooms at the palace. It even has its own opera house here. The gardens are equally as impressive. I didn't have time to explore much of the gardens, but here are just a few images of the many fountains and statues. The garden spans 800 hectares, boasts 50 fountains and 2,100 sculptures and a grand canal. This here is Apollo's Bath Grove and more fountains. There are 620 water jets to all those fountains, along with 200,000 trees and 210,000 flowers planted annually. Now, I didn't get a chance to visit the large gift shop inside the palace, but there is a smaller one outside where I bought a tea towel that is a map of the gardens and a few other knickknacks and a postcard and some bookmarks. In the next episode of the Red Lady Travels, we will be visiting Monet's house and gardens. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please give it a like and a share, as it really helps me out a lot. And please do subscribe. Please check out my other videos in the Red Lady Travels playlist. I'll put the link below. And don't forget to check the description box for sources and other relevant links. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.